And there we are live, and somebody is already watching. Thank you for being here. I have been on a leave of absence, as you guys well know. And here's the story before we get started. Here's the story of what happened with that. Let me see. The last video I did was the one on the Marvels. And I've been wanting to get together these other videos. You guys know about the Star Wars video. I recorded the duel video last night. That one will be going up first. Then I'll be working on the Star Wars video. So I wanted to sort of, like pull the spring back a little bit, like I did with the video on The Little Mermaid, because and with the Harley Quinn sales video, because I find when I pull it back and do a bit more of a script for it, that usually gets people more interested, and that those videos end up doing better. So I wanted to go on with that format, and I've practiced editing enough now that I can do it faster and faster. So it'll probably work out that I can do it in that way. And that's where I was for a little bit there, and then I had the filming of my short film I've been talking about for 6 months now. Maybe on another live stream I will talk a little bit more about what happened, but it was supposed to be done this February, and then it got delayed for various reasons, and then it got to go together again. So we did the second to the last scene 2 weeks ago, and right after we did that scene, I got sick. And so it's been a couple weeks of recovery, getting the last place together for the final scene of the film, which this Saturday, finally going to wrap filming. Really excited about that and to share the short film with you guys. But that's where I've been. I've been trying to get some other things together. I've been trying to recover from sickness. And so now I'm finally back, and I recorded a new video last night, but here we are today, and we're going to be talking about comic book stuff. And I was just so angry. You guys knew I would say this over and over again last year. I'd be like, I'm done with comics. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm done with comics. Now I'm coming back around, and I'm feeling a bit more comfortable with talking about them again, not just miserable. And I'm not exactly sure what changed that, because comic books aren't getting any better. I don't know if it's because I've read more of a range of them and I've seen maybe the worst offensive stuff change a little bit. Maybe it is because of the Batman and Joker Deadly Duo book. I will talk about that in a minute. Still haven't gotten back into Marvel comics, but we'll talk a little bit more about comics in general and why I might be feeling a little bit more like I've always done the Batman news reviews, but why I might be feeling a little bit more invested in them. I don't know. Maybe it's just because the movies are changing and I'm sensing that means the comics are going to change. But first things first, let's talk about the bad stuff in comics right now. Let's talk about what has been going on with Peter and MJ. Now, I've talked about this a lot of time before. Hello, Classic Harley. Thank you for being here. I've talked a lot about about this before, but I haven't read Marvel comics in a long time. But the Rupturous controversy over what they're doing with Peter and MJ is pretty huge at this point. And so I've been seeing that, and I've been seeing like the leaks that have been coming out from future issues and all that stuff. And it seems that there is an attempt at Marvel right now, even just to make it seem that way, that the Peter and MJ relationship would permanently end, even more than what they did with One More Day. And why is that? Well, they've taken certain steps to just do everything they can to sort of put salt in the eyes of the fans who love that relationship. They made Peter Parker say that he only loves MJ like a sister. That is a major blow to any relationship in comics or any media, really. They've now made Mary Jane married to someone else and have kids with someone else. And as you can see from previews, it really seems like they are trying to make it so that they're probably going to kill off Mary Jane. And here's what I think is happening here and what they're trying to do. I think that they're going to try to do what they did with the night Gwen Stacy died. They're going to make it so that Mary Jane gets killed off. She was the main love interest for Peter Parker, just like Gwen Stacy once was. And she is going to be killed off, and that the writer Zeb Wells is going to then try to position Felicia Hardy as his main love interest in the same way that MJ was positioned as his main love interest. And I gotta tell you, I hate that. I see how it's coming about. I think that there just seems to be a lot of hate for Peter and MJ out there. They don't want that relationship to continue. They don't want Peter to ever find permanent happiness, much like they never want the Batman and Catwoman relationship to last. But this really feels like a ploy to, in part, push Felicia Hardy and Spider-Man. And I know that this is a little bit of an obscure reference, but I remember when Spider-Man PS4 was coming out, and they did the DLC for Black Cat. And that DLC, the cutscenes were very, very highly viewed on YouTube. And there were so many comments over there talking about how Felicia Hardy is hotter and more exciting than Mary Jane, you know, and not so clean terms. But there were a lot of comments like that. So I'm wondering if that is not what's happening with the Amazing Spider-Man as it's going on right now, that they've decided that Black Cat is the more exciting relationship, and that they want to end and try to permanently end the Peter Parker and MJ relationship to try to position Black Cat as the main love interest. And I hate that, but at the same time, like, because listen, we've got Across the Spider-Verse coming out, and in that movie, Peter Parker is married to MJ, and they have Mayday. We have the recent Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy, which showed Tom Holland and MJ, Zendaya. You know, it's MJ that, you know, that's what she's supposed to be. So this is a relationship that is so iconic. It's as iconic as Superman and Lois Lane that it almost doesn't matter at this point if you break it up in the comics permanently or not, especially because it just these days it matters more what you do in the movies and the cartoons and the material apart from comics than the comics themselves. And I know that that is terrible to hear from longtime comic book readers, and those are the people most upset by this. But that is the unfortunate truth, that these comic book things have been adapted into so much more material. Oftentimes what happens is comic books are more affected by what they want to happen in the movies than the comics themselves. So if the movies start to push Peter and MJ more, then the comics will be influenced to do the same. It depends if the higher ups come down and change that. But it's like Peter and MJ aren't going to stop appearing as the main Spider-Man couple in movies or in cartoons or in any of this stuff. It's the comics that are giving the middle finger right now and are trying to rile up that traditional Spider-Man fan base that they know is still buying their comics, trying to rile them up and generate like angry sales from them. And so that's why I hate to see it happening. At the same time, and once again, this is from someone who is not like the biggest Spider-Man fan ever. Like, I'm a Spider-Man fan, just a Spider-Man fan. You know, I'm not a crazy obsessed Spider-Man fan. I'm just a regular Spider-Man fan. I hate to see it happen, but at the same time, I kind of feel like it doesn't matter at this point. And we can talk about how the movies are changing and how that might affect the comics, because fact of the matter is, and I put this as one of my topics today, Guardians 3, that was a big movie. They said this is the one thing left in the MCU that anybody seems like they might have interest in. It might be the last movie that's any good. Let me tell you, Guardians of the Galaxy, never as big as Iron Man or Captain America or Spider-Man or any of that stuff was. Guardians of the Galaxy sort of rode the coattails of that to be successful in the first place. So now that we're seeing, I'm completely shifting gears here, but now that we're seeing a shift, as it were, in the movies where it seems like most superhero movies aren't selling, and this is a huge, huge deal, because superhero movies became so big that you could get something like Guardians of the Galaxy off the ground and have it sell. Like, even like Guardians of the Galaxy might have been like maybe a liked movie that bombed, or like look at how the Suicide Squad performed. Guardians of the Galaxy would not have made nearly that much money on either movie if it weren't for the MCU train. And now that we've had so many consecutive MCU films that have just killed the brand, it seems that that not even Guardians of the Galaxy, even if it's really good, is going to sell. People just aren't interested. And for those who don't know, we just got the tracking that says it might not even come to 100 million on its opening day, which is like a low that I haven't seen for Marvel in like 10 years. That is ridiculous. And it's for a movie that is said to, behind the scenes, be very good. We'll see how the critics come out. So it seems that the age of superhero movies, like, it's done. Like, it's not even a question anymore. People have moved away from it. It used to be that the MCU's success would feed to these other movies, including DC, but now we're going to see more damage. By the way, I think the MCU's failure helped contribute to things like Shazam 2 failing and all that kind of stuff. And I think that James Gunn is going to see that his future plans just are not necessarily viable, at least in the form that they are in now, because so much damage has been done. You almost need to do something to recreate the initial excitement that the Avengers did in order to bring people back to these movies. And I think that The Flash is going to underperform. I think that Blue Beetle is going to bomb. I think that they're all going to be affected by this fact that people have moved away from the MCU. But how does that affect comics? Because we know for years now, comic books have been affected by the fact that the movies are so big, and so that the movies would change things about the comics just to justify what was happening in the movies, like creating characters like Miss Marvel, like pushing characters like Captain Marvel. um, uh, and those characters came out in the MCU Disney Plus shows, and they failed. All of the stuff that they tried to they tried to change Marvel for so many years, to be more of a Disney brand, and that's why Marvel Comics has suffered so much. And now it's just failing. Now the MCU is like Marvel Comics was in 2017, and when they made all those changes and tried to make it more of a lifestyle brand, and the movies are suffering for it, and so there's no excuse for it. So I'm wondering what's going to happen to comics now. Are they just going to kind of be this sort of side? Is Marvel in particular going to be some sort of side brand that Disney just has? Like, are they going to change things like the breaking up of Peter Parker and MJ to more traditional things? I cannot imagine Disney ever allowing things to go back to tradition, honestly. But it just makes me question, because so many things were changed in comics just to back up the movies, and now we're seeing that that is not working. So I'm just wondering, what is the next step for comic books after this? And maybe that's why I feel a bit more optimistic about it, because it feels like there is a change that is occurring in superhero media. It's not the biggest thing in the world. It's not when you need to change these comics to support these billion-dollar movies. Now superhero things are struggling, and they really need to perform and figure out what people actually want if they want to actually make money off of it again. Sorry, I got to get some water. Apologies for that. So yeah, by the way, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, that I've been able to finish Batman and Joker Deadly Duo, that comic. And I will probably do a greater review when it actually comes out in trade, or when it's all finished. I don't want to do it too soon. I want to have it in trade first so I can really read through it. And unfortunately, that doesn't come out till September. So that's a long ways off. But I just want to say I finished it. It's a very, very good comic series. And I think it might be one of the reasons why I feel better about comics at this point, because it brought all the traditional versions of the Batman characters back, and it was very traditional Batman storytelling. It was actually intriguing and thoughtful, and it's just not what you get from anything in mainstream comics right now. And so that comic is what I think really brought me back a bit, to my to some interest, to feeling like I'm paying attention to comics because I enjoy it, because I like talking about it, not because I'm like just sort of doom reading it, like I'm reading it to scream about it or anything. But the problem with Batman and Joker, the Deadly Duo, is that it ends. It's going to end next week, actually. Really, next week? Yeah, I think it's next week that it ends. But and then it's like, what do we have after that? We go back to like these mediocre writers, and they can't bring out these stories or make them any good. And for years, the big criticism for Marvel and DC was the politics being inserted into them. And, there's still some of that. But overall, I think the biggest problem with them is not that I'm being inundated with politics with the comics I read. It's more that they just hire like the most mediocre writers to bring these stories to life. And there's no care for the craft of comics anymore. They'll just hire the cheapest people that you can possibly get in order to bring about these characters to life, because they just don't care about them. And I guess they just feel like nobody's reading them at this point. So why should they care? There's not that much money in comics to begin with, I wouldn't imagine. So we got 9 people here at this point. Thank you, Classic Harley Quinn, for joining in. If you guys have a question, you can leave it in the comments section, or if you have any tips you want to give, also that really helps out the channel. And thank you so much for being here. I would like to say this, though. Something that really frustrates me about comics and seeing the sales numbers of them is the fact that fans can't leave well enough alone, right? Because the Amazing Spider-Man currently is the highest selling comic right now over all the Batmans. DC Comics is undergoing sort of a financial crisis. If a comic book company was to go over, be it Marvel or DC, I would say DC's going first because DC's numbers are just embarrassing. They have invested so much in Batman. There's been so much Batman for the past 2 years, and it's overwhelmed people. And we're seeing the results of that, where now the Batman titles are tanking. DC Comics is just going under. But The Amazing Spider-Man is currently the highest selling comic of the big two right now. And it's because of the drama, because people are invested in the drama and they can't leave well enough alone right now. If Peter Parker and MJ are breaking up, then they're going to read through to the end. And that's unfortunate. And another book, like I hate that Joker series that's going on right now by Matthew Rosenberg. It's just not good at all. But it actually has decent comic book sales. Why? Because it's the Joker and people just can't leave well enough alone with it, I guess. Let me share this again. Yeah, people just can't leave well enough alone with comics. They buy their favorites even if they hate it, and I think it's a sign. For example, Harley's comics, they don't sell at all. I think that's a sign that people have just come to not really care about her anymore because her comics just aren't doing well, and they haven't been well written. I don't think ever, but people cared more about her in like the mid 2010s, and they just don't anymore. Yes, the Joker series really is a joke. It's really just terrible, absolutely terrible comic book series. Nothing is happening in it. I read it and I feel like no one else is reading it, but then I look at the charts and apparently some people are, but no one's talking about it because nothing's happening in it. It's just terrible. Anyway, so going back to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I'm not sure if it's going to bomb. We'll see how well it is. I mean, it could bomb. James Gunn, apart from the MCU train, has not had that great box office. But I think that this Guardians of the Galaxies, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but it's all relative, talking about comics and then talking about, yes, this Joker series is still going, talking about how the movie's performances affect comics. But Guardians of the Galaxy, if that does not do well, and if it worse loses money, that is going to send ripples through. That's going to send ripples through everything having to do with superhero movies and stuff, because they're going to see, even when we have a name brand that we thought really sold, that we cannot make it actually happen. We cannot make it actually sell comics anymore. Thank you for saying I did great in Thinking Critical. He has not invited me back yet, so I don't know when I'll be back on there. But that, like, James Gunn is tied to all of this stuff, right? He's directed Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and writing it, and he's heavily involved in Superman right now and crafting apparently the entire DC movie slate going forward. But I mean, just think of it: if Guardians of the Galaxy, what people thought was a surefire hit, doesn't do well, which it looks like it is not going to, then that means that, what is that going to say about James Gunn? Because he is currently like the architect of things going forward with superhero movies. He was supposed to be the big director doing Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that would, a movie that people would actually be interested in, that might potentially even be good. Like, what does that mean financially for him going forward with Superman? Like, I don't think that Superman movie, it's going to come out 2 years from now. Like, I think that the landscape of superhero films is going to be even worse, because at that point we'll have had Blue Beetle come out, we'll have had the Marvels come out. We're going to have what else? The Flash, Aquaman 2, which is said to be abysmal, and Warner Brothers apparently knows that. And it's like, you're going to have these movies come out which just damage the brand even further. And I can't even remember what Marvel movies are supposed to come out next year, because honestly, I've just kind of dropped off at this point. Of course, Marvel has their Jonathan Majors situation and that whole thing going on. But it's like, the brand of superhero films is going to decline even more in the years going forward. And that is going to affect all the way. We don't even have any DC movies apart from Joker 2 until 2025. That is going to be really, really terrible. A Superman movie cannot just be a good Superman movie. It has to almost reinvigorate the brand of superheroes in general. And I don't know if a James Gunn Superman movie can do that, even if it is well made. because people have just become so fatigued with everything. And for me, it's just like I'm not going to be holding on to this stuff. I've got my movie reviews that I'm coming on doing next, and I've got all my own like short films and stuff. And I just what is this? I'm sorry, I'm checking things out. It's time to let go, because going forward, yes, don't forget the Amber Heard and Ezra Miller situation, because going forward, it's like, what do you got? You got, the only thing I think that they're shooting for right now is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, not the Falcon and Winter Soldier, Captain America 4 without Chris Evans, and I have no interest in that. That is probably the least interested I've ever been in a Marvel movie ever, Captain America 4. And so it's like, but I can't stop you from making this stuff. And as of now, they haven't said that like the Secret Wars isn't going to happen, even though I would assume that Kang Dynasty can't happen. So it's like, you got to get yourself together and court people back if you want that to happen at all. But I think that the era of like I already did the stream with Jacob, the era of superhero films is done, and it's up in the air of what's going to happen to comics as a result of that. But I'm interested to see what goes on. Okay, 9 people left. Okay, so I wanted to talk about some other stuff going on. So I've got this more like this different sort of video coming out. I've said for a while I want to do this where I'm kind of, pulling back the spring a little bit and pushing it forward on videos. And so Duel is my next video, and then I'm doing the Star Wars video. I want to do one about if a Smash Brothers movie is viable or not. I'm not sure if don't quote me on this, because I've got a Harley video I said I want to do, so I better not commit to anything right now. But since I saw the Mario movie, and not saying it's a masterpiece or an Oscar-winning film, but it did entertain me, I've started to get back into video games again. And so I was wondering if maybe on this channel, not soon, but maybe I'll start doing some streams where I'll play video games. Like I wanted to do a Sonic Mania stream, and we'll like, maybe we could fit it in, so we're playing video games, talking about that, and talking about movies and stuff there. Which once again, it's just an idea I'm floating out there. I would like to. But the video game movie seems to be what is coming next as the big thing after superhero films. It might take a while for that to get off the ground. I am a bit concerned for movie theaters right now, because right now they were just depending on Marvel movies for so long, and now it looks like the only big film that we've had this year, the only massive film has been Mario, and we don't have an official video game adaptation in pre-production for a while. And it's like Hollywood did not prepare for this. They did not expect the era of superhero films and the MCU to end so quickly, and so they haven't gotten good movies out there for everybody to go see. And so the theaters are kind of up a creek at this point, without having these films to go on. I'm curious, we see more layoffs from Disney today. I'm curious if is going to be something drastic in terms of their plans, and are they going to try to get out some lower budget films that they're trying to get people's interest in? Probably not. I don't know. But I really hope that the theaters don't suffer too much more from this big decline of superhero films, because it is not looking good for them right now. But anyway, going back to the subject that this video began on, Peter and MJ, my brother is a huge Spider-Man. He was distraught to hear what's going on with them in comics. For me, like, I feel bad about it. It's kind of par for the course of Marvel right now. And so it's kind of what I would expect, but I also don't expect it to matter, because comics have made themselves into a sort of niche where the stories don't matter. They can just be retconned, they can just be changed, and if not, people just leave, and people have just kind of, even as the movies are on the decline, more people are still watching the movies and paying attention to that stuff than the comics. So I think Peter and MJ overall is going to be fine, but it's more of a question to me, because we're just at such an unknown time right now, that I'm just wondering, are comic books even going to be cared about? That could be a good thing for comics as the movies move away from them, because that means that they won't have so many eyes on them, and maybe that will be a place where creatives can grow up again and bring their own ideas and don't have to be beholden to whatever the movies are doing or whatever rules that Hollywood is putting on them. But we just have to see. I would hope that more people start getting into comics and being able to write these Marvel and DC characters, but we just have to see with them. I am very excited to get out of this time of the sort of memification of Marvel characters and stuff. And I think that we'll see it gradually decline as the movies do, because once again, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, all characters created in order to become characters in the movies, and they just are not working out. So why would they push them in the comics anymore when they didn't need to? Let's see. People are talking about Jon Favreau. Yes, I do wish Disney would go back to making great animated films just like in the 90s. Jon Favreau. That's interesting that someone would bring that up. Jon Favreau, the only good movie I've ever seen of him has been Iron Man. And who knows if that was even him? He didn't write that movie, but oftentimes when you see a director get one good film, oftentimes I would argue that he was not the reason that that movie was successful. The Mandalorian is awful. The Jungle Book is awful. The Lion King is awful. I have not seen Jon Favreau have any good films. Okay, usually go a half hour on these little shorter streams. So a couple of you like the idea of me starting to stream to video games. I like the idea as well. Hello, Ryan Lynn. Thank you for wishing me get well wishes. Thank you all for sticking with this channel. Have to get back on track with all of this streaming. Yes, video game streams won't be just yet because I have to figure out like how to set it up because I've never done it before. But I kind of liked my lighting setup. My Patreon got to see my new lighting setup that I did. I'm looking at it right now. But I'm experimenting with more lighting techniques and setups just with what I have. And so I'm just working on all of this various stuff. Video game streams will be fun. And we have to because right now I can tell you just from other YouTubers I watch and just from my own channel, like comic book discussion and comic book movie discussion, the algorithm is moving away from that because people do not care about it as much. And so video games and stuff like that. And I think maybe because I guess with Mario games, there's really not that much drama. I've been listening to more video game channels lately. Oh, you're right. Hogwarts Legacy, but that's Twitter drama. I mean, like in the fan bases, like you don't find a lot of drama in Mario fans, right? I don't see that. Like I've been watching a lot of just video game channels because it's just relaxing to watch people play video games. There's no drama involved in it. And so a Hogwarts Legacy is Twitter drama. That does not count. That is not the in fandom drama. So yeah, I'm excited to do more stuff on video games and do stuff on those movies as well. By the way, it has been hilarious. Listen, I'll defend myself. I used to listen to Grace Randolph just because for a while there, it seemed like she had inside information when it came to like DC. But I have just gotten so tired of like her nonsense. She does not understand anything about video games, but she's trying to sound intelligent and informed about it. And it's just such a spiral to watch. And so it's just like, you don't understand anything about video games. I lost my mind because Grace Randolph said that she wanted there to be a Super Metroid movie because she wanted to see herself on screen. And I'm like, do you have any idea who Samus Aran is and how sexualized that character has been, which I know she wouldn't like. And so it was hilarious how you're listening to this stream and she's like, yeah, I want Samus Aran to be. I'm not going to do a Grace Randolph impression. I want her to be because I want to see myself represented on screen. And I don't want to apologize for that. I'm like, why are you comparing yourself to Samus Aran? And look, guys, I'm a woman, right? I don't think that I'm Samus Aran. Like, just because you're a woman doesn't mean you're seeing yourself on screen with this super curvaceous woman in a bodysuit, and then the space suit that she wears. I can't remember what its official name, but it's just such nonsense, and just to see just this nonsense from this person. Um, anyway, it's hilarious stuff. What else did she say? I really got me in her Mario review where we're just dunking on Grace Randolph. I have no shame. But she said that she thought the storyline of Bowser wanting to marry Peach was offensive and inappropriate for children. And it's just hilarious because that, like, the movie tried to compensate so much by making Peach so strong and independent and all of that, but she still found it offensive that Bowser wanted to marry Peach, and misrepresented the movie, saying it was all about who's going to date Princess Peach when it's not. Such nonsense. But it's interesting watching people in the industry, the film industry, just sort of spiral out of their depth with video games and them being the new thing. They just don't know what they're talking about here. And video games, I used to play them a lot when I was a bit younger, and then movies took over a bit, and now I'm getting back into them a bit more. And so that's exciting to do things on that. And I do, like, after seeing you guys talk about it, I do want to do my video on if a Smash Brothers movie is even viable to happen. So look forward to that. I've got like, let me see, I've got like 5 movies in the work, plus 5 videos in the works, plus a short film. So we'll just see when it all comes out. If you had enough money to make a huge bet, how long would you expect the era of video games will last, and how long do you think they will with Marvel? How well do you think they will do with Marvel in some games like The Last of Us 2? I can't say how long the video game adaptation thing will last because it hasn't even really gotten started yet. Like, when I see a Zelda movie in pre-production, a Metroid movie, a Star Fox movie, then we can maybe gauge it and we see the receptions to these various things. Like, I'm not sure, but I don't know if it'll be as, like, I don't know if it'll be the biggest thing in the world like Marvel was, where everybody's watching, or if it'll just be another thing that's very successful and it happens to be the thing, but maybe not as big unless it's a cohesive universe. I guess that should be saved for the Smash Brothers video, if you can even make it work to bring all these things together, just as you did with the MCU. We know that things with interconnecting stories and characters can work, but different universes, and then taking into consideration they might want something like Zelda to be live action, and then to have that crossover with animation is a something to think about. And so I'm not exactly sure because we're just getting started at this point. Okay, let's see. I'm waiting on the new Zelda game. Okay, I mean, there's a 5 Nights at Freddy's film happening. Yeah, we have to see, because Mario is like the video game franchise with the most broad appeal, and that's why it's making $1 billion right now. Other things might not, like the Sonic movies didn't make nearly as much money. That could be just because, like, Sonic for decades has been misused as a character, and I think he was misused in the movies by not making it completely animated. But we just have to see how it goes, and what money can be involved with this stuff. Is there as much money for it as a Super Mario film would be? Probably Zelda. I'm not sure about Metroid because of the sales of those games. Like, Zelda could be really, really big. But I've gone for 30 minutes or 33 minutes. Thank you guys so much for watching. Before I go, as always, if you have a question you want me to answer or something you want me to discuss really quick before I sign off, then leave that below, and I will give you guys time to write it if there is anything. Let us see. Thank you for streaming. Thank you, Classic Harley, for always being here. Not the biggest not the biggest turnout this week. I got to get back into streaming and promoting this channel. Your channel is growing. Keep it up. Thank you so much. Disenfranchised Ver One Tech. That is an interesting way of speaking it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.